Tonight, hi, I'm Charlie Key. I'll tell you a bit myself in a second, but tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about what is called asset tracking, and this is not financial assets, this is actual physical assets. So if we think about it, how we go out and you see every tractor trailer and semi truck on the road today, nearly every one of them is being tracked on where it is and what it's doing. So this is an area in the IoT space. We say IoT, and really we pretty much mean just about everything that has in it a connection. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So who am I? Well, I mentioned my name. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Losant. We are a IoT software platform company, and I'll show you a couple screens, but I won't dive into that too much. Basically what we do is we help companies use the data coming from physical devices like these and other devices and solve hard business problems with that data. I've started a couple companies in the past. My last company was a software developer tool company called Modulus. We're currently over in the Techstars IoT class, just a few blocks up. So if you're ever looking to come talk to some IoT companies, there's a bunch doing some really cool stuff on 23rd Street. I'm a technologist at heart, so I went to school for engineering, electrical and computer engineering, been doing computer science most of my life, and over the last 5-6 years have really moved into more of a business role. So my programming capabilities are pretty low at this point, but I'm going to show off a little bit of code and a couple things that we're playing around with. So asset tracking. So again, like I mentioned, asset tracking is one of these things that is truly prevalent in today's world, and it was prevalent before we came up with the word the Internet of Things, which was actually created by a gentleman from P&G for tracking lipstick. So this is a lot different. So fleet management, I kind of picked out 4 major use cases for where asset tracking is happening today. And pretty much what I mean by asset tracking, I mean tracking a physical good based on its GPS location. There's a lot of other attributes that will be tracked with these things as well: temperature, humidity, condition, so is it moving around, shaking, vibrating. But I'm going to focus on kind of the GPS. So fleet management is one of the biggest markets in this country. We have, you look around and you see how many semis are out there. Every one of them is pretty much being tracked. Shipment tracing. So moving goods from one place to the other. So imagine you're moving $1 million worth of goods across the country. You probably maybe want to know where those are at every point in time. So you might slip one of these guys in there and try to keep track of where that's at and what's happening with it, especially with perishable goods and all these other things. You'd be surprised how often that does not happen today, though, and then these things go missing. Equipment, major heavy equipment rentals. So you think about someone who's renting you a bobcat or a backhoe, and one, they probably want to know what's happening with it, but also they want to know where it's at and make sure it doesn't get stolen. And the most interesting I'm going to mention is one, I'm calling it heavy-duty parenting, but basically keeping track of our children and our family. You've seen a lot of rise of new gadgets and toys that are coming out that actually are for children that they can use to communicate with their parents via a wristwatch, but those are also using GPS trackers. Now, the interesting thing about the way these things work is, I'm going to go ahead and break this open real quick. So there's 2 major pieces to what a GPS tracker is really going to be, and the first is an actual GPS unit. So this is actually using GPS satellites to triangulate and understand where its actual physical location is. The second is how it's going to communicate. So these are the 2 major problems from the hardware standpoint that have to be solved out there. The second one is usually typically solved using cellular. So it's connecting via a cellular chip. There's a SIM card in here. You guys may or may not be able to see it. You guys can come and play around with this later, look at it. But there's a SIM card in here, and all of that data is being sent up via a cellular, via text messages most of the time. So simple protocols. I'm going to show off real quick what one of these solutions may look like. So this is an off-the-shelf GPS tracker. You can go and buy this. It costs about $100. You can then get a SIM card from somebody and connect it, and then tell it where to send data. In this case, we have this off-the-shelf tracker. It's got a SIM card in here from a company called Hologram, which is a startup out of Chicago that allows you to purchase and buy micro SIM plans. So you can basically pay per kilobyte of data that you're sending versus like a major cell phone plan or anything. So this sends out all this data on a specific protocol, and I'll show a little bit of that in here in a second. That specific protocol will have the information about its location, what it's doing, and then you have to then break that down, and then you can use that information. In this kind of small demo that I'm showing, it actually goes to a server that's running in the cloud. It's built on Node.js. I'm going to show that code here in just a second. That Node.js code is then taking all that data from the packets that are being sent up and then translating those, pulling the GPS location out and a bunch of other information, and then that will actually push it into our platform, and then we can use and show that kind of information. So I'm going to jump out and show you actually the code. So this is sending up, you just point it to an IP address and it will send the data to a location. In this case, I'm running a small, set of code written in Node.js that's running on a server running on Modulus, which is a Node.js hosting platform. So when this data comes up, we're just going to simply, you can see down here, actually, this is actually where we create the server with the socket, and this is where the actual data is coming in. Most of this is uninteresting. The most interesting piece I'm going to jump over to and show off is show you kind of how simple the data that is coming in is. So all of this data is coming in from that device, and it has all of these different attributes about it. And we're just ripping off the pieces of data on each one of those. We're gonna then take these different pieces of data. You can see we get a lot more than just the location out of this. We're gonna go ahead and send that over to the Losant software platform, and then we can kind of see and do interesting stuff with this data. So we've got this fantastic off-the-shelf device you can go buy anywhere online for about $100, and then we can actually start tracking and doing interesting stuff with the actual data that we have. So before I jump over there, this is Hologram. All I have is I have a very simple SIM card that I bought from them, and then you can see it's actually sending data, and it costs a cents on the dollar each month for sending all this data. So the first thing I'm just going to kind of show is hopefully the actual location is correct here, but we can see here, this is actually just a simple dashboard of the location that we're seeing here, and hopefully it should be about right. So that's actually tracking this right now. It's sending up data every 5 minutes, and that's where we're currently sitting. Nothing too special there. You can pull that up on you can do similar stuff with a lot of other pieces, but now, for instance, this thing also sends up battery life. We're looking at that as well. You can see where I've been in the last 24 hours. So down in the bottom right from your angle, I was actually in Cincinnati, Ohio this morning, flew here, and that's the two places that this device has been over the last 24 hours. But now we've solved the problem of having some of this data. The last piece is, all right, what are we going to do with this? So you can imagine if you're shipping a set of goods across the country, you might want to know when they hit a location. So when they get to your office, for instance. So there's a lot of different ways to do this out in the world. And in our case, you might pull that data in and then look up the actual address, so that this is actually going to pull in the address based on the GPS location, so it'll do a reverse lookup. Using Google's API, you can do this kind of stuff. It's very simple, very easy. But we could also do something fun and say, okay, Now I can say, is it inside of a geofence? Now I can check if it's in a certain area and then get a text message. These are all kinds of things that become really important when using these kinds of data. So I've got a couple minutes left. Very, very quick overview of asset tracking and some of the interesting stuff you can do with it. I'm gonna jump back into the slides. I will go ahead and put all of this information up at some point and give it to everybody. And I have a couple links in here for people who actually would want to do any of this stuff or playing around with it. The first is to the actual device that is out there. The second is the protocol that device sends. It's a very simple message-based protocol, but that second link will actually show off all the hologram is what is being used for cellular, and then our stuff. I also wanted to point out that there are a number of other ways that you can solve this similar problem of tracking these different things. There's off-the-shelf hardware and software solutions. One's called Sendem. One is called Nimble Wireless. There's all kinds of these different devices. There's a bunch of different GPS devices that you can use, that you can play around with, and actually get similar results as well. If you are a hacker or a maker, you can build your own device. There's a lot of fun stuff. A company called Particle, if you have not seen, they make little hardware chips. They both make cellular and Wi-Fi based chips that you can use and build your own little asset trackers. Again, you're looking at probably $50 to $100 to kind of get up and running with one of these devices. And then you can program it to do whatever you want and send the data wherever you want. And then lastly, I'll mention the other common global communication method these devices are going to have is going to be based on satellite. And you guys have probably seen these orange devices called a spot. These spot devices are a similar GPS device, and they send up their data via satellites, so therefore you get a lot more global coverage around. So if you're taking a backpacking trip in Nepal, you can carry one of these devices, and your family and friends can know exactly where you're at, or if you're in the middle of the jungle. This is the kind of devices that can help do this kind of fun stuff like that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop right there. That was a lot to cover in 13 and a half minutes. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Interestingly, the CEO of Hologram spoke at this event last time.
Did he?
A few weeks ago. So yes, absolutely. Yeah. So is asset tracking one of the applications of the platform, or is it the core focus?
Yeah, it's one of the applications. So what we focus on providing the tool set for doing a lot of these different, in both industrial and non-industrial applications. We're working with companies that are tracking physical assets like tow trucks. So tow trucks is actually more on the vehicle side, but they're tracking where these tow trucks are, what they're doing. Also, we have people who are tracking pumps, so actual water pumps and physical pumps that are in gold mines 400 meters down in the middle of Australia, and sending that data up to the platform. So there's a lot of different actual use cases that we're seeing.
Very cool. And are you based here in New York or in Cincinnati?
Based in Cincinnati, here in New York for several months, and we'll see what happens after that.
All right, very nice. Does anyone have a question? We have a microphone. All right, I'm going to try and do this.
Uh-oh.
You ready? All right, I'll do Turn around.
Yeah?
Yes, should work.
Hi, okay, great presentation. Just quick question, how do you make money?
How do we make money?
Yeah.
We make money by licensing our software. Our software runs in the cloud, and we license by how much data is being pushed to our platform. So people pay us based on the amount of data points they're kind of pushing into the cloud and how many devices are connected to the platform. Secondarily, we do offer our platform to be installed on premises, so they can license and use our platform inside of their own firewall. Industrial companies, manufacturing companies would likely do something like that.
Very cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.